Hey, Oliver. To start us off, can you tell us a little bit about yourself as well as your company, London United?
Yeah, sure. So I actually come from a traditional sports background. I worked at the Premier League as a general counsel in commercial and IP for a number of years, then went into a business role in Formula One working for the teams. For 3 years, I tried to take on Bernie Ecclestone. I was the walking dartboard in the paddock for 3 years. And then I got involved in a whole lot of fan engagement activities and other motorsport called Formula E. And that took me to sports tech and VR and CGI and mobile gaming and latterly esports. It then led to me setting up London United really as a grassroots esports organisation to try and help gamers play a bit more professionally. Now, there's lots of path to pros out there that you could probably find, but we wanted to come at it from a different angle. So very much around building community, aligning with societal benefits. And what I mean by that is education and health and nutrition and life skills. So not endorsing 23 hours sitting on your ass playing games all day. And also, if we could use gaming as a means of social purpose to get kids off the street and educated at the same time as gaming, that very much aligned with our values. So we took an approach of essentially saying, look, we're going to build out the community by having physical events. And I'm sort of jumping ahead to COVID now, and now we pivoted to online events.
I see. And can you walk me a little bit through that original story? How did you first come up with the idea of starting this esports company?
So London United, actually, the credit goes to Adam White, who you probably know as the CEO of Edge. He was co-founder with me. And we spoke about the challenge of gamers playing more professionally, and he'd been an esports agent. And we sat there brainstorming as to taking a very almost regional approach, so starting with London and then building out into other cities, but focusing on community and almost having it as a fan-owned esports organization. We've evolved from fan-owned to more being fan-focused. And we just said, look, we have to stand up in the crowd. Corporate social responsibility is really important for lots of stakeholders now, including brands. And we just went with it from there. Mm-hmm. And we ran our first proof of concept event in January 2019 for Fortnite tryouts.
Wow. And so you mentioned this earlier that you used to be a sports lawyer and consultant for the Premier League as well as Formula One. So I was wondering, how did you make that jump to running an esports company? What made you want to do something different?
So I think I mentioned earlier that I worked in sports tech, and I worked in sports tech for about 3 years. And when I came out of the organization I'd been working with, advising for 3 years, essentially as a full-time role, I had had a lot of exposure to esports, but particularly motorsport esports. And then Adam and I met and we started talking, and then I went to CSGO at Wembley Arena. And I realized when Wembley Arena sold out on a Friday afternoon, and this content, and I didn't really know Counter-Strike very well, it's so engaging, it's short form, and the production value is incredible. And I was like, wow, I thought I needed to be in esports. I definitely need to be in esports. So that was how it evolved, really. They just sort of cemented my thinking that I had to get into esports.
And so what would you say is the biggest difference between being a consultant and running your own company?
Well, I was, the Premier League and Formula One, I wasn't a consultant, but when I worked in, Formula E as a consultant to the teams, and then, even in sports tech for a period of time, there's a big difference in respect of that you have to keep the workload ticking over for obvious reasons. You go into your own business, there's a lot more responsibilities in respect of staff and the infrastructure and overheads. As a consultant or as an advisor, you essentially are a one-man band, sometimes two if you bring someone in to help you, as I did on some of the fan engagement events. But now running London United is a lot more responsibility. You're constantly having to ensure your social channels are updated, the website. There's always problems. You end up having to deal with a lot yourself. I mean, I say I'm the CEO of all things, really.
So what would you say is the most challenging moment for you so far in starting your own business?
100% the most challenging thing is lack of funding. Full stop.
And on the flip side, what has been the best, most satisfying moment so far?
The most satisfying moments are when you're working on an event and you're very stressed and you're doing a million things, and then you see the eyeballs on Twitch and you're like, whoa, that is an endorsement of what we're doing. Now, one of the challenges is we're not converting the eyeballs we're getting into following on social channels, but we know that our concept is working and we're creating engaging content. So we've got something to build from. So the traction is there. Just recently, we did an event where we ran a competition for a FIFA gamer to play in Yana against professional esports players and esports players from football clubs. So professional teams and football clubs, esports players. And we had 70,000 unique viewers on our FIFA stream. This is a grassroots gaming competition, essentially. So we know we've got something because we're creating engaging content. It's not just gaming content.
Mm-hmm. And so if you could go back in time to when you were first starting out, what is one advice that you would tell yourself?
Take a job.
Do you regret doing this, or?
No. I don't regret doing this, but I think probably in the shorter term should have had more work to cover. So I'm going to flip it around. I believe in going 100% into everything I do. So if I say I'm going to do something, I commit to doing it. But the challenge when you don't have the seed funding, of course, is how do you pay the bills? How do you ensure that you can build a robust website? And you end up bootstrapping, you don't do anything properly. So, we've had 2 builds of our website. We have a back end of the website that isn't very good. And we're now going through that whole process again of getting quotes for a complete overhaul. I got offered a job last year. I was signing a term sheet with an investment fund. So in good faith, I didn't think I could take it. But actually, in hindsight, what I should have done was I should have had a job and then managed London United as best as I could in the shorter term until it was fully funded.
Mm-hmm. And do you have some sort of ultimate goal for London United, or perhaps for yourself? Where do you see yourself in 10 or 20 years of time?
Well, 10 or 20 years time, I don't know if I'll still be doing London United. Ultimately, what we want to do is build out London United. It's a very scalable proposition. So you can literally take the London United model into other cities. Where does that then take you? Actually, you could be putting on your own league with all the teams in each of the countries participating in your owned and operated league, which you can commercialize. 10 years time, hopefully I would have sold out to News Corp or somebody like that, an organization.
Mm-hmm. And do you have any advice for someone like me who's still a student, but I'm interested in entrepreneurship and maybe wants to potentially start a company in the future?
So so I think the biggest piece of advice I probably would say is find a mentor, someone who can sit on your shoulder and guide you through it. I had various people sort of helping me, but no one that I really got into bed with, literally. And I think if I'd had someone sat on my shoulder, maybe I wouldn't have made some of the mistakes that I've made. But as they say, you live and learn. And I think also trying to get some experience. I have a guy working with me, a brilliant guy called Hugo, who is ex-Accenture, that wanted to get into esports. And he has taken a leap of faith in working with me and is getting so much experience in how a startup works. He came in just initially to try and help in investor relations. He's doing website editing. He's working with gamers. We're doing social media content plans. Every day we're doing 10 different things. And the experience for him is incredible. And he's much younger than me. And I've no doubt he could then take that into his own entrepreneurial role, so to speak.
That's awesome. So can you talk a little bit more about the mentor part? How exactly should you go about finding the right mentor, and how do you ask someone to become your mentor?
Well, you just ask someone to become your mentor if you like them and trust them, I suppose. I think it's always easier to have a mentor, someone that you know and respect. But I think as well, you have to think about what business do you want to go into? If it's esports, so you look for a guru of esports that's been around, that maybe isn't as operational, who's doing non-exec work or as a chairman of a board or something, and say, look, I would really appreciate if you could give me some advice as I go through this process. But how do you get a mentor? You just ask them.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. And are there any particular books or podcasts that you would recommend?
Oh, there is a very good one that I'm going to look up because I have so many podcasts. But there's a very good business one. Bear with me a second. Mm-hmm. The Tim Ferriss Show.
Yes, I've heard of that. Mm-hmm.
You heard of that one?
Yep.
Yeah, I actually don't listen to it enough. And the current book that I'm reading, hang on 1 second, it's settled behind my back, which I probably should have started reading about a year ago, is Venture Capital. So it's by Scott Kapoor, Venture Capital, and How to Get It, Secrets of Sand Hill Road. And I probably should have started reading that a lot earlier.
And before we end, I want to also ask, how are you and the London United team doing currently under the COVID-19? With any changes to how you run your business?
So just before the COVID pandemic broke out, I walked away from a funding deal. So I had a anchor investment fund that I had to walk away from because the long form was so materially different to the term sheet, and I couldn't saddle myself with that noose around my neck at the beginning of the business when I actually had plans to hire people in marketing. So then we started to do a series of planning physical events. And as soon as COVID hit, we realized that wasn't going to work. So we immediately went to see, could we do an online event? And that then worked with the FIFA event. And now we're doing a League of Legends event as well. So very much we're doing about online events, trying to engage. We are a little bit more prolific on LinkedIn as well. We're doing a monthly blog. So we're keeping ourselves relevant. We're letting people know we're out there.
Got it. So that's it for today's interview. Thank you, Oliver, for taking our time to do this. And I wish you and London United the best of luck. Stay safe.
Thank you. Remember to follow us on socials.